Hey everyone, I'm Ms. Milkowski, the mathematician, and today we are going to talk about simplifying radical expressions. Okay, so I know in previous videos you have seen me simplify something like the square root of 72, but I have never done any examples, or maybe I have like an older video where I did one example of simplifying when we're dealing with variables, all right? Now, when I simplify the square root of 72, and if you click right there, you'll be able to watch a video of me doing that. I talk about writing 72 as a product of its prime factors and then saying, all right, so because it's the square root, I'm looking for groups of 2. So for every group of 2, I cross it out and pull one outside, right? Well, this is x to the 29th. So if I were to sit there and write, I could do it this way, okay? I could sit there and write x to the 29th because that means it's x repeatedly multiplied 29 times. I could write 29x's out, right? But that would take forever. So you're probably wondering, is there another way? And there is. So that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so the first thing I want to tell you is, in this case, we're dealing with a square root, okay? Remember, when there's no index there, it implies it's square root. If there were a 3 there, it would be cube root, 4 there, 4th root, etc. When you're dealing with square roots, okay, you want to see if you can write x to the 29th or whatever you have in there as x to the and then some multiple of 2. If it were cube roots, we want to write it as x to the and then some multiple of 3. All right? So in this case, because it's square root, we want to see, can we write x to the 29th as x to the something that's even? All right? And we could write x to the 29th as x to the 28th times x, right? Because x to the 28th times x is x to the 29th. Because remember, this is like there's a 1 here, and then you remember the property where when we're multiplying, we add the exponents. So that's what we're trying to do here. So if it were x to the 31st, for example, you could do x to the 30th times x, anything like that. So basically, you want the power to now be even, and then whatever's left over, don't worry about that. You're going to see what's going to happen to that. So just we write it as x to the 28th times x. That's another way to write x to the 29th. So I can even write that over here. You can say x to the 29th equals x to the 28th times x. All right? We put that under there. Now, I'm going to use another property, which is, you may remember the product property, which is the nth root of x times y equals the nth root of x times the nth root of y, okay? And the only reason I'm using that is I'm going to break it up just to make it easier to see, okay? Some students are able to do this, quickly without breaking anything up, but I think it's important kind of to go step by step so that everyone can understand where everything's coming from. So now I'm just going to rewrite the square root of x to the 28th times x as the square root of x to the 28th times the square root of x. Awesome. Now, something else you may remember is that, I probably should I put these properties in another color? Yeah, I guess it's okay. We'll just kind of keep it blocked off over here. All right, so another thing you may remember is that the nth root of x equals x to the 1 over n, okay? And that becomes important, okay? Because we're going to use that for the square root of x to the 28th, okay? Instead of having the square root, I could just take the x, or in this case, x to the 28th, and raise it to the 1/2, right? So I could say, another way to write this is x to the 28th to the 1/2. And then, of course, times the square root of x. Now, this is awesome. Remember your exponent rules, right? So when I have, of course, and I drew a little line, and I shouldn't have drawn that line because I'm going to put something else up here. So you remember if you have x to the m times, or actually, you know what, I'm going to do a and b, just because I used n up there. I don't want to confuse anyone. So we're going to do n as the other one. So x to the a times x to the b equals x to the a plus b, which we used over here kind of. And now x to the a to the b equals x to the a times b, okay? So that means I multiply 28 and 1/2, right? Because x to the a to the b is equals x to the a times b. So now I'm going to say, okay, well that equals x to the, and then it's going to be 28 times 1/2. And then of course times the square root of x. Awesome. Well, x to the 28 times 1/2, okay, we could take the middle step and say that's the same as 28 over 2. If you are able to do that multiplication, that multiplication in your head, then you're good. 28 divided by 2 is just going to be 14, okay? So then it becomes x to the 14th, and then times root x, and then at this point we don't really need to put the dot for times there. We can just write it as x to the 14th root x. And that's our answer. Great, so the answer is x to the 14th root x. So there you go. So the big strategy I want you to remember from this is break it up. Instead of writing x to the 29th as x times x times x times x times x, you still want to break it up, but you want to break it up into something smaller in the sense of smaller as in writing fewer things down, which would be x to the 28th times x. And because we're doing square root, we want this number to be a multiple of 2. So there you go. Hey everyone, I'm Ms. Milkowski, the mathematician, and I hope you found that last video helpful. If you have any questions or if there are any topics you'd like to see me cover in future videos, definitely let me know in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'm going to leave you with the most important piece of advice I can give you, which is when you're doing mathematics, always ask why.